My name is Chioma, and I'm about to tell you a story that changed everything. You know those moments when life just flips upside down in seconds? This is one of those stories. 3 months ago, I was washing cars at a mobile station on Victoria Island, Lagos. Hot sun, dirty water, and 50 naira per car if I was lucky. That's barely enough for one meal, but it kept me and my little brother Nnali alive after Mama died. The night everything started, I was walking home along the expressway around 11 p.m. Lagos never sleeps, you know? Cars flying past like bullets, everyone rushing somewhere important. Not me, though. I was just trying to get back to our one-room apartment in Mushin before the area boys started their night rounds. That's when I heard it, this sick metal sound, like the world was tearing apart. A silver Mercedes had flipped 3 times and landed upside down about 50 meters ahead. Smoke was already rising from the engine. Other cars just swerved around it and kept going. Nobody stopped. That's Lagos for you. Everyone's too busy surviving to save someone else. But something made me run toward that car. Maybe it was the way my mama always said, "Chioma, we help people because that's who we are." Even when we had nothing, she'd share her last kobo with someone hungrier. I could smell petrol leaking everywhere. The front windshield was cracked but not broken. Inside, I saw this old man in an expensive suit, blood running down his forehead, completely unconscious. His breathing was shallow, like he was barely holding on. Have you ever felt time moving like molasses? That's what those next 30 seconds felt like. I grabbed a rock from the roadside and smashed the passenger window. Glass cut my hands, but I didn't care. I reached in, unlocked the door, and started pulling this man out. He was heavy, probably ate well his whole life while people like me fought for scraps. But I kept pulling. His lips were moving, trying to say something. I got closer, and he whispered a phone number, 0803, and then one word, Chinwuba. Just as I dragged him clear of the car, the engine exploded. The heat hit my back like a wall of fire. If I'd waited another 10 seconds, we'd both be dead. I sat there on the roadside, holding this stranger's head in my lap, watching his expensive Mercedes burn. His suit probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. His watch was real gold. I could tell because my uncle Emeka used to repair watches before he died. The ambulance came an hour later. Nigerian time, you know? The paramedics looked at me like I was dirt, but they took the old man. Before they loaded him in, he grabbed my wrist with surprising strength and whispered that phone number again, along with the name Chinwuba. I thought about calling that number for days, but what would I say? "Hello, I saved some rich man's life. Please give me money." That's not who Mama raised me to be. 2 days later, Mama started coughing up blood. The diabetes was getting worse, and we couldn't afford her insulin anymore. 50 naira per car wasn't enough to keep her alive, and I knew it. But what choice did I have? That morning, I watched her inject the last drops of insulin from a vial we'd been stretching for 3 weeks. She smiled at me and said, "Chioma, God will provide." But her hands were shaking, and her eyes looked distant. I didn't know it then, but I was about to lose everything. The next morning changed everything. I woke up to Nnali shaking me awake, crying. Mama was on the floor beside her mat, unconscious. Her breathing was so weak I had to put my ear to her chest to hear it. "Chioma, she won't wake up," Nnali whispered. He was only 12, but he understood what this meant. We'd been watching Mama get weaker every day. I carried her to Lagos State University Teaching Hospital. Have you ever carried someone you love who's dying? Every step feels like you're racing against time itself. The morning traffic was brutal, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. At the hospital, the nurse at reception looked at Mama, then at my torn clothes and dirty hands. Her expression said everything. "Where's your deposit?" she asked without even checking Mama's pulse. "Please, she's dying. I'll find the money, I promise." No deposit, no treatment. That's the rule. I begged. I got on my knees right there in that crowded waiting room. Other patients stared, but nobody helped. The security guard, this big man named Emeka, just watched me like I was entertainment. "Please, just look at her. She needs insulin. Just insulin." The nurse didn't even look up from her paperwork. 200,000 naira deposit. Come back when you have it. 200,000. I made maybe 3,000 on a good day. At that rate, Mama would be dead before I earned half of it. I sat outside that hospital for 6 hours, holding Mama's hand, watching her slip away. Nnali hadn't eaten since yesterday, but he didn't complain. He just held Mama's other hand and hummed her favorite song. That evening, Mama opened her eyes one last time. She looked at me and whispered, "Take care of your brother. You're stronger than you know, Chioma." She died holding our hands as the sun set over Lagos. The hospital wouldn't even let us keep her body without paying morgue fees. Everything cost money we didn't have. Even death wasn't free for people like us. We borrowed money from our landlord, Mr. Okori, to bury Mama. He was understanding at first, even gave us an extra week before asking for rent. But that kindness didn't last long. 3 days after the funeral, Okori knocked on our door at 6 a.m. He wasn't alone. 2 men I'd never seen before stood behind him, arms crossed. "Chioma, you owe me 4 months' rent plus the burial money. That's 200,000 naira total." The same amount the hospital wanted to save Mama's life. "Mr. Okori, please, give me time. I'm working every day." "Time?" He laughed, but it wasn't funny. "Your mother promised me time for 6 months. Look how that ended." He walked around our tiny room, touching our few belongings like he owned them, which, I guess, he did. "You have until tomorrow morning. Pay or get out." After he left, I sat on Mama's mat and did the math. Even if I washed cars 20 hours a day, I'd need 2 months to earn that money. We didn't have 2 months. We had 12 hours. That night, Nnali developed a fever. The stress, the poor food, sleeping on the floor, it was too much for him. He was burning up, but I couldn't afford medicine. I couldn't afford anything. I held him close and whispered Mama's lullabies, trying to keep him cool with wet rags. But his breathing got worse, the same shallow breathing I'd heard from Mama. "Chioma," he whispered around midnight, "are we going to die too?" I looked at my little brother, skinny, sick, trusting me to save him, and I made a promise. "No, Nnali, I'll figure something out. I promise." But sitting there in the dark, listening to him struggle to breathe, I had no idea how I was going to keep that promise. 6 a.m. came like a death sentence. Okori's heavy footsteps in the corridor woke me before his fist pounded our door. I knew what was coming. "Time's up, Chioma." I opened the door holding Nnali, who was still burning with fever. Okori looked at my sick brother, then at our few belongings packed in 2 shopping bags, and showed no mercy. "You don't have my money." "Mr. Okori, please look at him. He's sick. Just give me 1 more week." 1 more week becomes 1 more month. I'm not running a charity. He stepped aside and gestured to his men. "Take their things outside." They grabbed our bags like we were criminals. Everything Mama owned, everything we had left of her, thrown onto the street like garbage. Her Bible, her photos, the small radio she'd saved for years to buy. "Wait," I called after them. "At least let me get his medicine." "What medicine?" Okori laughed. "You can't even afford rent." Within 10 minutes, we were sitting on the side of Mushin Road with 2 bags and nowhere to go. Nnali was shivering despite the Lagos heat, his fever getting worse. Other people walked past like we were invisible. I tried to think. The gas station where I worked was 20 minutes away, but my boss Udoka had already told me he was cutting my hours. "Too many young girls looking for work," he'd said. "I don't need problems with sick family members." That's when I remembered Jibril. 2 weeks earlier, this smooth-talking man in expensive clothes had approached me at the gas station. Gold chains, clean shoes, the kind of guy who never missed a meal. "Fine girl like you shouldn't be washing cars," he'd said. "I have better work, clean work, good money." I'd heard stories about men like Jibril. Nothing was ever as clean as they promised. But sitting on that street with my dying brother, desperation makes you consider things you'd never consider. I found his business card in Mama's Bible. I'd tucked it there to keep it safe, never thinking I'd actually use it. "Jibril, this is Chioma, the girl from the gas station." "Ah, Chioma, I was wondering when you'd call. You ready to make some real money?" "What kind of work exactly?" His laugh made my skin crawl. "Nothing too hard. Just be friendly to some gentlemen at a club in Victoria Island, rich men who appreciate beautiful company." I knew exactly what he meant, but Nnali was getting sicker by the hour. "How much money?" 20,000 a night, sometimes more, depending on how friendly you are. 20,000, more than I made in a week washing cars. Enough to get Nnali medicine, find us a place to sleep. "I need to think about it." "Don't think too long, sweetie. Opportunities like this don't wait." After I hung up, I held Nnali close. His fever was so high he was barely conscious. A woman walking past looked at us with pity, but kept walking. An old man stopped, stared, then crossed the street to avoid us. That's when I saw him. Officer Chinyonso, the local policeman who controlled this area. He was walking straight toward us, and his expression wasn't friendly. "You two can't stay here," he said. "This is a business area." "Sir, please, my brother is sick. We just need somewhere to rest." "I don't care if he's dying. You're making the place look bad." He looked around, then leaned closer. "Unless you want to discuss a small arrangement, you look like you could earn some money for both of us." His hand brushed my shoulder, and I understood. Even the police wanted to use me. I pulled Nnali away from Chinonso and started walking. We had nowhere to go, no money, no food. My brother was getting sicker, and every man I met wanted to buy pieces of me. That night, we slept in Tafawa Balewa Square, using newspaper as blankets. Nnali's fever broke around midnight, but he was so weak he could barely sit up. "Chioma," he whispered, "I'm hungry." I had 50 naira left, enough for one small loaf of bread. I bought it and watched him eat every crumb, pretending I wasn't hungry too. As I watched my little brother struggle to chew that bread with his weakened jaw, I made a decision that still haunts me. The next morning, I called Jibriel back. "I knew you'd come around," he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Meet me at Golden Tulip Hotel, Victoria Island, 2 p.m. I spent our last 20 naira on a Danfo bus to get there, leaving Nnali with Mrs. Aduni, an old woman who sold oranges near the square. She promised to watch him for a few hours. The Golden Tulip was everything I wasn't. Clean, expensive, full of people who belonged there. I felt like dirt walking through that marble lobby in my torn dress and worn-out slippers. Jibriel was waiting in the restaurant, looking comfortable and well-fed. He ordered himself pepper soup while I sat there with nothing, my stomach cramping from hunger. "You made the right choice, Chioma. Smart girl." He slid a photograph across the table. "This is what you'll be doing. See these ladies? They make good money being friendly to businessmen." The women in the photo were dressed expensively, smiling at men in suits. It looked innocent enough, but I wasn't naive. "What exactly do you want me to do?" "Just talk to them, laugh at their jokes, make them feel special. Rich men pay good money for beautiful company." His eyes traveled up and down my body like I was livestock. "With your looks, you could make 30,000 a night." 30,000. Enough to get Nnali to a real doctor, buy his medicine, maybe even rent a small room. And if they want more than talking? Jibriel's smile got wider. "That's between you and them. I just arrange introductions." I thought about Nnali lying sick on newspaper, about Mama's last words to take care of him. Sometimes survival makes you consider things that would disgust you otherwise. "Okay, but just talking, nothing else." Of course, you're in control." But his laugh told me otherwise. He handed me an address in Lekki and told me to be there at 8 p.m. "Wear something nice. I'll provide the dress." When I got back to the square, Nnali looked worse. Mrs. Aduni pulled me aside. "That boy needs a hospital, not oranges," she whispered. "His breathing is getting bad." I knelt beside Nnali and felt his forehead, still burning hot. "Chioma, where did you go?" he asked weakly. "To find us some help, little brother. Just rest." That afternoon, a different kind of help arrived. A woman in a clean uniform approached us, carrying a clipboard. "Hello, I'm Adaze from Lagos State Social Services. Someone reported children living on the street." Finally, I thought, someone from the government who might actually help. "Ma, please. My brother is very sick. We lost our home after our mother died." Adayaz looked sympathetic. She knelt down and examined Nnali with gentle hands. "Poor child. He needs medical attention immediately. We have nowhere to go, no money for treatment." "Don't worry, I have a solution." She smiled warmly. "I run a temporary shelter for children in situations like yours. We can provide housing, food, and medical care while we sort out your situation." It sounded too good to be true, but what choice did I have? "There's just one small requirement," Adaz continued. "The shelter operates on donations, and we're short this month. You'd need to help earn some income to pay for your brother's care." "What kind of work?" "My husband Ikechukwu runs a legitimate business, massage therapy, wellness services, very respectable. You just help with reception, customer service, nothing improper. I should have known. In Lagos, nothing is ever free, especially help from strangers. But looking at Nnali struggling to breathe, I was running out of options. How much would I earn? Enough to cover your brother's medical expenses, plus room and board for both of you. That evening, instead of meeting Gabriel, I carried Nnali to Adaisy's shelter in Yaba. It was a decent building, clean and quiet. Other children were playing in the courtyard, looking healthy and fed. See, Adaeze said, we take good care of our children here. She showed us to a small room with 2 beds and actual sheets. Nnali fell asleep immediately on clean bedding for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow, you'll start working with my husband, Adaeze said, and we'll get medical attention for your brother. That night, sleeping on a real mattress with my brother safe beside me, I felt hope for the first time since Mama died. I should have known that feeling wouldn't last. The next morning, Adaeze took me to meet her husband Ikechukwu. His wellness center was a 2-story building in Surulere with tinted windows and no clear signage, the kind of place you walk past without really noticing. Ikechukwu was a big man with soft hands and cold eyes. He looked me up and down like Gabriel had, but with more ownership in his gaze. So this is our new receptionist, he said. Adaeze told me about your situation. Very sad. Thank you for helping us, sir. Help comes with obligations, Chioma. You understand this, yes? I nodded, though something in his tone made my skin crawl. He showed me around the building. The ground floor looked normal enough. A reception desk, some chairs, soft music playing. But when we walked upstairs, the atmosphere changed. Dim lighting, thick carpets, rooms with locks on the outside. This is where our special clients receive premium services, Ikechukwu explained. Very private, very discreet. In one of the rooms, I saw massage tables, but also other things. A mini bar, a bed with silk sheets, candles. This wasn't about wellness. What exactly would I be doing? Reception work, greeting clients, scheduling appointments, making sure everyone is comfortable. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Sometimes our therapists get busy and clients need extra attention. That's where you'd help. I knew what he meant, but I pretended not to understand. Just reception work, right? Of course, to start. That afternoon, I watched the real business operate. Men in expensive cars pulled up with tinted windows. They never stayed long, but they left looking satisfied. The therapists were young women, not much older than me, wearing clothes that barely covered anything. One of them, a girl named Blessing, pulled me aside during a break. Sister, you need to leave this place, she whispered. It's not what they told you. What do you mean? They'll start you on reception, yes, but soon they'll say you owe them money for housing your brother, for his medicine. Then they'll say you need to work upstairs to pay it back. But Adaeze said, Adaeze is his wife. They work together. She finds the girls. He uses them. My heart dropped. How long have you been here? 2 years. I came here when I was 16, just like you. They said they'd help my sick mother. Blessing's eyes filled with tears. I haven't seen my family since. That evening, I tried to leave with Nnali, but when we reached the gate, 2 security guards blocked our path. Where are you going? One asked. We're leaving. Thank you for your help, but we'll manage on our own. Sister, you can't leave yet. You owe money for your brother's medicine, remember? What medicine? He hasn't seen a doctor yet. The medicine we gave him this morning. Very expensive, plus room and board for 2 nights. The guard showed me a paper with numbers that made no sense. 40,000 naira total. 40,000. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. That's impossible. We've only been here 1 day. Interest accumulates quickly. Don't worry, you can work it off upstairs. When I refused, they took Nnali to a different room. He stays here until you pay your debt, Ikechukwu said when I found him. Very simple arrangement. You can't keep him, he's my brother. I can keep whoever I want until debts are paid. This is my property. That night, they locked me in a room upstairs. No windows, just a bed and a mirror. I could hear Nnali crying somewhere in the building, but I couldn't reach him. Around midnight, Ikechukwu came to my room with a client, a fat man in an expensive suit who smelled like alcohol and cologne. Chioma, meet Mr. Emeka. He's been very patient, waiting for you to understand your situation. I won't do this. Then your brother won't eat tomorrow or get his medicine. You choose. Emeka stepped forward, reaching for me with his sweaty hands. Don't worry, girl. I'll be gentle. I backed against the wall, trapped. This was it. This was how girls like me disappeared into places like this, never to be seen again. But then I remembered something. That phone number, the name Chinwuba, the old man from the car accident. Wait, I said. I need to make one phone call first, to settle some family business. Ikechukwu laughed. Family business? You have no family except that sick boy downstairs. Just one call, then I'll do whatever you want. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe he enjoyed watching me grasp at false hope, but Ikechukwu handed me his phone. 1 minute, then Mr. Emeka gets his money's worth. With shaking fingers, I dialed the number I'd memorized 3 weeks ago. It rang twice before someone answered. Hello? Is this Chinwuba? There was a pause, then a voice I recognized. Older, weaker, but definitely the same man from the burning car. Who is this? My name is Chioma. 3 weeks ago, I pulled you from a car accident on Victoria Island Expressway. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, where are you? I'm in trouble, I whispered into the phone, turning away from Ikechukwu and his client. They have my brother. They want me to... Where exactly are you? The voice was sharp now, commanding. I gave him the address in Surulere. Ikechukwu was getting impatient, tapping his watch. Stay exactly where you are. Do not leave that building. I'm coming. But sir, I don't think you understand. These people... Chioma. His voice cut through my panic. I am Chinwuba Okafor. I own half the oil wells in Rivers State. These people have no idea who they're dealing with. Stay strong for 20 minutes. The line went dead. Ikechukwu grabbed the phone back. That family business finished. Now you pay your debt. He pushed the fat client toward me. Actually, I said, my voice steadier now, I think you should wait. Ikechukwu backhanded me across the face. You don't tell me to wait. You work, or your brother suffers. The client was reaching for my dress when we heard car doors slamming outside. Multiple cars, then footsteps on the stairs. Not just a few people, but many. The door burst open. 6 men in black suits entered like soldiers, followed by a 7th man I recognized despite his bandaged forehead. Chinwuba Okafor looked smaller than I remembered, but the power radiating from him filled the room. Step away from the girl, he said quietly. Ikechukwu tried to bluff. Who are you? This is private property. You can't just... I can do whatever I want. Chinwuba's voice was calm, but his eyes were ice. You made a mistake tonight, a very expensive mistake. One of his men whispered something in his ear. Chinwuba nodded. Bring the boy. 2 minutes later, they brought Nnali. He ran to me, and I held him close, feeling his thin body shaking. Now, Chinwuba continued, let's discuss your business model, Mr. Ikechukwu. Look, this is just a misunderstanding. The girl came here voluntarily. She owes us money for 40,000 naira for 1 day's room and board. Chinwuba pulled out a document. My accountant finds that interesting, especially since you reported no income to the tax authorities last year. Ikechukwu's confidence cracked. Sir, please, we can work something out. Indeed we can, Chinwuba gestured to his men. Gentlemen, please escort Mr. Emeka to his car. I believe his wife would be interested to know how he spends his evenings. The fat client scrambled for the door, his expensive suit wrinkled with sweat and fear. As for you, Mr. Ikechukwu, and your wife Adeyize, Chinwuba continued, you have exactly 1 hour to release every girl in this building and provide them transportation home. You will also return any money or identification documents you've stolen. You can't make us do anything. We have rights. Rights? Chinwuba smiled, but it was terrifying. Let me explain your rights. My lawyer, who's waiting downstairs, has already filed complaints with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission about your unreported income. My friend at the Lagos State Police has received detailed reports about your human trafficking operation. And my contact at the tax authority is very curious about this building's ownership. Ikechukwu looked around desperately. His security guards had melted away the moment they saw Chinwuba's men. But sir, we're just trying to make a living. By enslaving children? Chinwuba's voice turned cold. I don't think so. One of his men handed him another document. The girl Blessing has agreed to testify about your methods, so have 3 others. That should be enough for the prosecutors. Within an hour, the building was empty except for us and Chinwuba's people. Blessing hugged me before she left. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never thought I'd see my family again." As we walked outside, I saw Adaze in handcuffs, being loaded into a police van. She saw me and screamed, "This is your fault, you ungrateful!" One of the officers shut the van door on her words. Chinwuba turned to me as we reached his car, a gleaming black Mercedes that probably cost more than most houses in Lagos. "Chioma, I owe you my life. That night on the expressway, you risked everything to save a stranger." "Sir, you don't owe me anything. You already saved us." "No," he said firmly. "This is just the beginning. Get in the car. We need to talk." As we drove through Lagos in the back of his air-conditioned Mercedes, Nnali fell asleep against my shoulder for the first time in weeks, without fever or fear. I thought our troubles were over. I had no idea that the real surprise was still coming. Chinwuba's house in Lekki was like something from a movie. Gates that opened by themselves, gardens with flowers I'd never seen, and a house so big our entire apartment in Mushin could fit in just the entrance hall. "Welcome to my home," he said as we stepped out of the car. A woman in a crisp uniform appeared immediately. "Sir, should I prepare the guest rooms?" "Yes, fund me. 2 rooms and call Dr. Amaka. I want the boy examined tonight." Nnali was staring at everything with wide eyes. "Chioma, is this a hotel?" "No, little brother. This is Mr. Chinwuba's house." He must be very rich. Chinwuba overheard and smiled. Rich enough. But money means nothing if you can't help the people who matter. Dr. Amaka arrived within an hour. She was a gentlewoman who examined Nnali thoroughly, then pulled me aside. "He's malnourished and dehydrated, but nothing that good food and rest won't fix. The fever was from stress and poor living conditions. He'll be fine." That night, I put Nnali to bed in a room larger than anywhere we'd ever lived. Clean sheets, air conditioning, and a bathroom with hot water. He fell asleep holding my hand, finally safe. Chinwuba found me on the balcony later, looking out at Lagos lights stretching to the horizon. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "It doesn't feel real. This morning we were on the street and now..." "Now you're where you belong." He sat beside me. "Chioma, I need to tell you something. That night you saved me, I was coming from a meeting that changed everything." "What kind of meeting?" "I was finalizing my will. I have no children, no wife. My siblings died years ago. I was deciding who would inherit my companies, my properties, everything I've built." The night air was cool, but his words made me shiver. After the accident, lying in that hospital bed, I kept thinking about you. A girl who had nothing, who risked her life for a stranger. I had my people looking for you for weeks. "Sir, I just did what anyone would do." "No, Chioma. Most people drove past that accident. You ran toward danger to save someone you didn't know. That tells me everything about who you are." He stood and walked to the balcony railing. "Tomorrow, I want you to meet my lawyer. There are papers to sign, arrangements to make." "What kind of arrangements?" "I'm 62 years old. I built an empire from nothing, but I have no one to leave it to. No one until now." My heart started racing. "Sir, I don't understand." "I want to adopt you and Nnali, legally, officially. You'll be my daughter, he'll be my son. Everything I own will be yours someday." I couldn't breathe. "But sir, you barely know us." "I know enough. I know you're brave, loyal, and you put family first. Those are the only qualities that matter." He turned back to me. "But there's something else you should know. Making you my heir will create enemies." "What do you mean?" "I have business partners, distant relatives, people who've been waiting for me to die so they can fight over my wealth. When they learn about you and Nnali, they'll try to stop this." "How?" "Any way they can. They'll claim you're manipulating me, that you're after my money. They might try to hurt you, or worse." His expression grew dark. "That's why we need to move carefully." The next morning, I woke to find Nnali already up, playing in the garden with a dog I hadn't seen before. "His name is Bingo," Nnali called out. "Uncle Chinwuba got him for me." Uncle Chinwuba. My brother had adapted to wealth faster than I had. Over breakfast, real eggs, fresh bread, orange juice that wasn't mixed with water, Chinwuba explained his plan. First, we'll arrange proper schooling for both of you. Private tutors initially, then the best schools in Lagos. You need education to handle what's coming. What's coming? Responsibility. My oil companies, real estate investments, shipping business. It's all complex. You'll need to understand every aspect. A man in an expensive suit arrived as we finished eating. This is Obinna, my lawyer, Chinwuba said. He'll handle the adoption papers. Obinna looked at me with curious eyes. Mr. Okafor has told me remarkable things about you, Miss Chioma. Just the truth, Chinwuba said firmly. As Obinna spread legal documents across the dining table, I felt overwhelmed. 3 days ago, I was washing cars for 50 naira. Now, I was signing papers that would make me the heir to millions. There's one more thing, Chinwuba said as I finished signing. My business partner, Emefiele, doesn't know about this yet. He's been expecting to inherit my shares in our joint ventures. Will he be angry? Angry enough to cause problems. But don't worry about that now. Focus on learning, growing, becoming the leader you're meant to be. That afternoon, while Nnali napped, Chinwuba showed me around his companies. Oil tankers in Apapa port, office buildings in Victoria Island, warehouses that seem to stretch forever. All of this will be yours, he said. But remember, with great wealth comes great danger. I didn't fully understand what he meant until the phone rang that evening. Chinwuba answered, and I watched his face change. I see, he said coldly. And you're certain? A long pause. Double the security immediately. He hung up and turned to me with worried eyes. What is it? I asked. Word is getting out about the adoption. Someone leaked it to the wrong people. He was already calling his security team. We need to accelerate our timeline. What does that mean? It means your new life is about to get very dangerous, very quickly. The danger came faster than Chinwuba expected. 2 days later, while we were having breakfast, his head of security, Kelechi, burst in looking grim. Sir, we have a problem. Emefiele is here with lawyers and government officials. They're claiming fraud. Through the window, I could see a convoy of black cars in the driveway. Men in suits were getting out, some carrying briefcases, others with badges I couldn't read from this distance. Fraud? Chinwuba stood slowly. What kind of fraud? They're saying you're not of sound mind, that the girl is manipulating you for your money. They have a court order to freeze all your accounts pending investigation. My blood went cold. But that's not true. Truth doesn't matter when powerful people want you gone, Chinwuba said grimly. Emefiele has been planning this for months. He was just waiting for the right moment. The doorbell rang, followed by heavy knocking. Chinwuba straightened his shoulders. Take Chioma and Nnali upstairs. Keep them out of sight. No, I said. If they're accusing me of something, I should face them. Chioma, these men aren't interested in truth. They want you scared and gone. But I was already walking toward the front door. Maybe it was pride, or maybe I was tired of running from powerful men who thought they could control my life. In the living room, I found myself facing 5 men in expensive suits. The leader was Emefiele, a tall man with cold eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. So this is the famous girl who saved our friend's life, he said, looking me up and down like I was something distasteful. Very young, very pretty, very convenient. Mr. Emefiele, I presume, I said, keeping my voice steady. Dr. Emefiele, I have a PhD in business administration. His emphasis on the title was meant to remind me of my place. And you are an uneducated street girl who thinks she can seduce her way to millions. I think you've been misinformed. Have I? He opened his briefcase and pulled out photographs. These were taken at Ikechukwu's establishment. You entering willingly, working there, only leaving when your plan to trap a wealthy old man succeeded. The photos showed me entering the building with a daisy, but they were taken from angles that made it look different than what really happened. Those pictures don't show the truth. Don't they? A desperate girl, involved with criminal elements, suddenly befriends a wealthy man after a convenient accident. He turned to the other men. Gentlemen, this is clearly a case of elder manipulation and fraud. One of the officials, a woman with a stern face, stepped forward. Miss Chioma, I'm from social services. We have reports that you and your brother were involved in illegal activities. We need to take you both into custody for your own protection. Protection from what? from the criminal charges being filed against you for fraud, coercion, and conspiracy. Chinwuba finally spoke. This is ridiculous, Emefiele. You know this girl saved my life. Did she? Or did she arrange the accident to create an opportunity? Emefiele smiled coldly. We've been investigating the crash, very suspicious circumstances, and conveniently, she was the only witness. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. You think that I caused the accident? I think you're a very clever girl who saw an opportunity and took it. The question is, what did you promise to do for Ikechukwu and his people in exchange for their help with this scheme? That's insane. They were keeping me prisoner. Were they? Or were you working with them until something better came along? The social services woman stepped closer. Miss Chioma, if you cooperate with us, tell us who else was involved in this plan. We can arrange a lighter sentence for you and proper care for your brother. I looked at Chinwuba, who seemed suddenly older and frailer. The stress was affecting his heart condition. Sir, tell them the truth. But Emefiele interrupted. The truth is that my business partner is clearly being manipulated by a criminal. Judge Adebayo here has signed an order placing him under psychiatric evaluation. A thin man in robes nodded. Mr. Okafor, you'll be staying at Lagos State Hospital for observation while we sort this out. You can't do this, I said desperately. We can and we are. You and your brother will be placed in protective custody until trial. Kelechi stepped forward, but Chinwuba raised his hand. No violence. That will only make things worse. As they led Chinwuba away, he caught my eye. Remember what I taught you about chess, Chioma? Sometimes you have to sacrifice pieces to win the game. I didn't understand what he meant until they were gone, and I was sitting in a government van with Nnali, watching Chinwuba's house disappear behind us. Chioma, what's happening? Nnali asked, confused and scared. Bad people are trying to hurt us, little brother, but Uncle Chinwuba is smarter than they think. The van took us to a children's facility in Yaba, not as bad as Ikechukwu's place, but still a prison. Concrete walls, barred windows, and the smell of too many desperate people in too small a space. That night, lying on a thin mattress next to Nnali, I tried to figure out Chinwuba's chess metaphor. What pieces was he sacrificing, and how could we possibly win against people with this much power? The answer came the next morning when a guard brought me a visitor. Dr. Amaka, the physician who had examined Nnali, was waiting in the visiting room with a briefcase and a smile. Hello, Chioma. We have work to do. Dr. Amaka looked around the visiting room to make sure we weren't being overheard, then leaned forward. Chinwuba knew this would happen. He's been preparing for Emefiele's move for months. What do you mean? He suspected his business partner was planning something like this, so he gathered evidence. She opened her briefcase and showed me files thick with documents. Financial records, recorded conversations, proof of Emefiele's own illegal activities. My heart jumped with hope. Then we can prove I'm innocent. It's not that simple. Emefiele has judges in his pocket, police officers on his payroll. We can't fight him through normal channels. Then how? We're going to use his own greed against him. Dr. Amaka pulled out a recording device. This is a conversation between Emefiele and Judge Adebayo from last week. Listen. She pressed play. Emefiele's voice filled the room. Once the old man is declared mentally unfit, I'll control his assets. The girl will disappear into the system, and no one will ask questions. Your fee will be 2 million naira. And if she talks? Who will believe a street girl with criminal connections? Besides, accidents happen to people who cause trouble. My blood ran cold. They were planning to kill me. There's more, Dr. Amaka said. Chinwuba has been recording all his business meetings with Emefiele for the past year. We have evidence of bribery, tax evasion, even connections to human trafficking rings. Then why aren't they arrested? Because Emefiele has protection, but there's one person he can't buy. She smiled. Governor Sanwo-Olu's wife, Mrs. Ibijoke. She runs a foundation for exploited women and children. She's been looking for a way to bring down trafficking networks for years. Will she help us? She's already helping us, but we need you to do something very dangerous. That afternoon, I was transferred to a different facility. But instead of another government building, the van took me to Mrs. Sanwo-Olu's private office in Victoria Island. She was an elegant woman in her 50s, with kind eyes that had seen too much pain. Chioma, Dr. Amaka has told me your story, but I need to hear it from you. I told her everything. The accident, saving Chinwuba, losing Mama, the trafficking ring, the false accusations. She listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. These men have been operating with impunity for too long, she said finally, but we're going to stop them. How? Tomorrow, Emefiele is meeting with several foreign investors who don't know about his criminal activities. They're considering a major business deal with him. You're going to be at that meeting. They'll recognize me. They'll know something's wrong. That's exactly what we want. We need Emefiele to lose his composure, to reveal his true nature in front of witnesses he can't buy or threaten. She handed me an expensive dress and jewelry. You'll be introduced as my protégé, a young businesswoman interested in legitimate investments. The contrast with what Emefiele claims about you will be interesting. The next evening, I found myself in the penthouse restaurant of Echo Hotel, dressed like the wealthy heiress I was supposed to be. Mrs. Sanwo Olu had coached me on business terms, proper etiquette, how to carry myself with confidence. Emefiele was already there with his foreign investors, 3 white men in expensive suits who looked bored with Lagos society, but interested in oil money. When he saw me, his face went white. What is she doing here? Dr. Emefiele, I'd like you to meet Chioma Okafor, Mrs. Sanwo Olu said smoothly. She's Chinwuba's adopted daughter and heir to his business empire. The foreign investors looked confused. I thought you said the old man had no family, one of them said to Emefiele. He doesn't. This girl is a fraud, a criminal. Is she? Mrs. Sanwo Olu interrupted. That's interesting, because I have legal documents showing the adoption was completed weeks ago, signed, sealed, and witnessed. Emefiele's composure cracked. Those documents are fake. This girl manipulated a sick old man. Actually, I said, finding my voice, I think you're the one who's been manipulating people. I pulled out a recording device and pressed play. Emefiele's voice filled the restaurant. Once the old man is declared mentally unfit, I'll control his assets. The girl will disappear into the system. The foreign investors exchanged glances. One of them stood up. Dr. Emefiele, we think there's been a misunderstanding. We'll be withdrawing from any business arrangements. Wait, you don't understand? But they were already leaving, their lawyer gathering papers with obvious distaste. Emefiele turned on me with fury in his eyes. You clever little witch, you think you've won? I think you just lost your biggest investment deal, I said calmly. This isn't over. I still have the judge, the police. Actually, you don't. Mrs. Sanwo Olu signaled, and 3 men in suits entered the restaurant. These gentlemen are from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. They have some questions about your business practices. As they led Emefiele away in handcuffs, he screamed back at me. This isn't over! I have friends! You'll never be safe! But his threats felt empty now. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like we were winning. Mrs. Sanwo Olu squeezed my hand. Well done, my dear, but now comes the hard part. What's that? Living up to the responsibility you've inherited. Being Chinwuba Okafor's daughter means more than just wealth. It means using that power to help others. As we left the restaurant, I thought about Blessing and the other girls we'd saved from Ikechukwu's trafficking ring, about all the people like me who needed someone to fight for them. Maybe that's what Chinwuba saw in me that night by the burning car. Not just someone brave enough to save a life, but someone who would use his legacy to save many more. 3 months later, I stood in the boardroom of Okafor Industries, looking out at Lagos from the 40th floor. The city sprawled beneath me like a living thing. Millions of people hustling, surviving, dreaming. Just like I used to be. Chinwuba sat at the head of the conference table, healthy again after his ordeal. The stress of the false accusations had triggered his heart condition, but with Emefiele in prison and the charges dropped, he'd recovered quickly. Are you ready for this? He asked. Today was the day I officially took control of half his business empire. At 19, I was about to become one of the youngest executives in Nigerian corporate history. As ready as anyone can be, I said. The boardroom filled with executives, lawyers, and journalists. Some looked skeptical. They still saw a street girl playing dress-up. Others seemed curious about what I would do with such power. Obinna, the lawyer, handled the formalities. Papers were signed, hands were shaken, photographs were taken. But the real moment came when Chinwuba stood to address the room. 6 months ago, this young woman saved my life. Today, she's saving my legacy. He gestured to me. Chioma understands something that many wealthy people forget. That power is worthless unless you use it to lift others up. I stood beside him, wearing a business suit that cost more than my family used to spend in a year. But I hadn't forgotten where I came from. Thank you all for being here today, I began. I know some of you are wondering if a girl from Mushin can handle corporate responsibility. The answer is yes, because I understand what's at stake. I clicked a remote, and a presentation screen showed images of street children, trafficking victims, families living in poverty. My first initiative as co-executive will be establishing the Nkeru Foundation, named after my mother. The room was completely silent now. We'll provide education, healthcare, and job training for underprivileged youth across Lagos State. A journalist raised her hand. Miss Okafor, what qualifies you to run such programs? I've been there. I know what it feels like to choose between food and medicine, to sleep on the street with nowhere to go, to watch someone you love die because you can't afford help. My voice grew stronger. I know what these children need because I was one of them. After the press conference, Chinwuba and I visited the first foundation center in Yaba. It was housed in a renovated building that used to be a trafficking operation, Ikachukwu's old place, which we'd bought and transformed. Blessing was there, now serving as a counselor for rescued girls. She hugged me tight when we arrived. I can't believe this used to be that horrible place, she said, looking around at the bright classrooms and dormitories. Sometimes the best victories come from transforming the worst defeats, I told her. Nnali, now 13 and thriving in private school, had insisted on being there for the opening. He cut the ribbon with me, grinning from ear to ear. Sister, do you think Mama would be proud? He whispered. I think she's watching us right now, little brother. And yes, she's very proud. That evening, back in our house in Lekki, our real home now, I found Chinwuba on the same balcony where he'd first told me about the adoption. Any regrets? He asked. About what? Taking on all this responsibility. You could have just taken the money and lived quietly. I thought about it. You know what I learned from everything that happened? The only way to truly escape poverty is to make sure other people escape it too. If I just helped myself, I'd always be looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next Emefiele or Ikechukwu. And now I have enough power to fight back, to protect people who can't protect themselves. He smiled. Your mother raised you well. 6 months later, the foundation had expanded to 5 centers across Lagos. We'd rescued 43 children from trafficking rings, provided scholarships to hundreds more, and created job training programs that were being replicated in other states. Standing in my office one morning, reading reports from our field workers, I got a call that made me smile. Miss Okafor, this is Mrs. Aduni. I used to sell oranges near Tafawa Balewa Square. Do you remember me? Of course. You watched Nnali for me that day. Yes, Ma. I wanted to thank you. My granddaughter just received one of your scholarships. She's going to study medicine at University of Lagos. That's wonderful news. She wants to become a doctor to help poor people, just like you helped us. She says you showed her that where you come from doesn't determine where you can go. After I hung up, I walked to my window and looked out at Lagos again. Somewhere down there, another girl was probably washing cars or selling water in traffic, wondering if life would ever get better. I made a mental note to expand our outreach programs. Because here's what I learned from my story, and maybe you can learn something from it too. Life will knock you down. Powerful people will try to use you. The system will seem designed to keep you trapped. But if you remember who you are, if you hold on to the people who matter, and if you're willing to risk everything for what's right, you can change not just your own story, but the stories of everyone around you. That night by the burning car, I saved one man's life, but he gave me the power to save thousands more. Sometimes the most important moment in your life is the one where you choose to help someone else, even when you have nothing to gain and everything to lose. That's when you discover who you really are. And that's when your real story begins. If this story moved you, I hope you'll remember that there are real Chiomas out there right now, fighting battles just like this one. Maybe today's the day you become someone's Chinwuba, the person who changes everything with a single act of belief in another human being. This is Afrilogy, where every story reminds us that courage, compassion, and determination can overcome any obstacle. Until next time, remember, your story isn't over yet.